excited to have you in here with that cake, Dan. I'm going to pass the mic over to you.
Yes, I'm very.
All right. I am super excited here. Joe, just want to make sure. Can you hear us?
I can hear you. You've just gone into the background.
All right, Joe's here.
And Julie's just disappeared. But can you speak again?
Did he disappear?
Julie?
What happened? Oh, he's there. Okay. Just want to make sure he's there. Okay, good.
Yep, I've not got the phenomenon here.
Okay, I'll read the bio real quick, and then we'll go in. But we are super excited for Joe here. Joe Foster, founder of Reebok, incredible individual. I'm going to read his bio while he's just getting situated. Joseph William Foster, or Joe Foster, was born in 1935 in Bolton, England, with the same birthday, 18th of May, as his grandfather, also Joseph William Foster, who had died 18 months earlier. I think Joe's grandfather was the founder of J.W. Foster's and Sons Athletic Shoes Limited and the inventor of the spiked running shoe and the trainer. So it makes sense that Joe did what he did. He was destined. Joe and his late brother Jeff were born into the J.W. Foster and family business, but on their return after 2 years away from home on national service, they asked questions. The year was 1955, and the brothers saw a business still rooted in the 1930s. Their father and uncle were now operating the business, and very much like any other sports shoe company, spent more time feuding than collaborating. The result was that in 1958, Joe and Jeff left the Foster business to set up a new sports shoe company. The brothers founded Mercury Sports Footwear, which after 18 months, they changed its name to the iconic brand Reebok. Joe had been advised to protect their company's name by registering it. By 1965, Joe was on his way to the National Sporting Goods of America show in Chicago, which was the start of many global adventures and experiences that after 15 years brought him together with Paul Fireman and later many stars of film and television. As the surviving founder of Reebok, Joe still welcomes the opportunity to travel and recount those early stories from startup to taking the company to a $4 billion business, overtaking Adidas and Nike to become the world's #1 sports brand. He is also the author of Shoemaker, which you can purchase today. I would highly suggest go check out the book WMB.Club. You can actually get a signed copy of Shoemaker. Welcome, Joe Foster.
Oh, hello. That was a very nice.
Joe, we can't hear you.
You can't hear me.
Unmute. Joe, I think you might be muted on the phone.
It's all right. I'm muted. Yeah.
Yes, but before, guys, let's open a mic to Joe.
Hello. I'm open now. I'm here. That was a great introduction, Dan. Hello. Technology, it's it has its problems, but we're here. Thank you for the invitation.
Yes, Joe, we're honored having you here. And Joe, I'd like to know, what was the city or town you grew up in like?
Well, if we go back to 1935 when I was born, we're pre-war. We still have glass lamps in the gas lighting in the streets, and it was we grew up then. In fact, we had no television. We had radio, just about, but really local communities. The community usually around the church, where all your friends and people that you knew, the same age group. That was our town, and not very big. It's grown immensely since 1935, of course, but yeah, it was home. And I think mainly that's where it is. You're just a youngster and you know no different. So it was home.
I love it. And what moment from your childhood are you most proud of?
What am I most proud of? I don't know if I'm proud of many things really, but maybe I was a runner at that time. Not that I like running, but being part of a running shoe family, I of course wore running shoes, spikes. And my proudest moment was probably during the war when I won my 60-yard race, and I received a dictionary, not a football. I received a dictionary, and it was an American dictionary. And I didn't think very much of it at that time. In fact, I was fairly disappointed as an 8-year-old youngster to be given a dictionary. And I didn't know that it was an American dictionary. And that would have given me a lot of problems with some of the spellings, because they are a little bit different than the Oxford English version.
Wow. So who gave you that dictionary?
Well, I won the race, and winning a race, I went up for the presentation. And as I say, the presentation was a dictionary and not a football. And, when you're 8 years old, what do you do with a dictionary? You can't go on the field and kick it about and play with it. But it was a dictionary, which was to, how can I say, be immensely important later in life.
Wow. Can you tell me more?
Well,
why is that?
Why is that? Well, we have to, a little bit of the family history. We go back to 1895, which we've heard of my grandfather, and he was a great influencer. He had Olympic gold medalists and lots of world record people in his shoes. That was great. He died, though, in 1933. He died, and I wasn't born until 1935, on his birthday, the 18th of May. So my grandmother said, oh, he's brought his name with him. So I am called Joseph William. He was called Joseph William. So, okay, I come into the world. 4 years after that, we're in World War II. Everything's blackout. And for 5 years, more like 6 years, for 6 years, we're running around streets with no lighting. But again, we're just children. And as that, you accept it. It's normal. 1945, the lights come on, and we're back to school again, because we didn't get much schooling during the war. It was a bit sort of in the teacher's front room of the house. We managed a few days a week, but and then I went to college. But at the age of 17, I joined the family business. Joining the family business was fine, but 1 year later, as Dad has said, we went off to do national service, both Jeff and myself. Coming back, we come back from national service, and we come back to a failing company. And try as we may, we couldn't get my father and uncle to work together. So our conclusion was to leave the company. And we left the company, and again, we set up the company as Mercury Sports Footwear. And it was 18 months later when we were told to do the register our name. And this is where the dictionary came in. Because an agent said, well, if you can't buy, because it was for sale for £1,000, if you can't buy the name, you're going to have to bring me 10 names, and then we can check them. And I was in his office, and his window was open. It was a nice day in May. And he pointed to a sign, Kodak. And I'm saying, well, what's with Kodak? It's an invented name. That's the best way to be able to register a name, invent one. So I went back. We sit round the table, and we're thinking 10 names. How do you do this? So I had Cougar. That sounded good. Falcon, another one, and many others. But by my side was my dictionary. My dictionary had one when I was 8 years old. I knew by then it was an American dictionary. But I like the letter R. So I thought, well, why not? I opened up the dictionary, started to thumb through the pages, and soon came upon Reebok, R-E-E-B-O-K, a small South African gazelle. Wow, gazelle, that's got to go top of the list. Now, if I had been looking at an English dictionary, an Oxford English dictionary, that would have been spelled R-H-E-B-O-K. And I don't think that would have been as interesting. In fact, I may well have passed that by. But fortunately, my American dictionary gave me R-E-E-B-O-K.
Wow. Now, Joe, are you happy with that name?
Oh, at that time, that was like, all of a sudden something happened. What was it? How did we find that name? Right? how did somebody come to give me a dictionary when I was 8? You know, it turned out to be a fantastic name. We like Mercury, but, you know, 3 syllables is probably more difficult to say. Reebok came so, you could say it, you know, to pronounce Reebok, it's so easy and it's so catchy. So yes, we love the name.
Wow, thank you for sharing that, Joe. You mentioned your father and your uncle isn't in the same page in business. How did you handle that dynamic as a company working with family?
Well, working with family seemed very natural and really no problems. But of course, it's when we went away and we left the family, we came back, we found out that was the problem. When grandfather had died, the sons, my uncle and father, took over the business. That was Jim and Bill. They took over the business, and grandmother was there, Mariah. And Mariah was a person to be considered very much. And she kept them together. She kept the business going. But at a point, while Jeff and I were away doing national service, she died. And that was a problem. We then had a war. Both father and uncle, they didn't speak. And in fact, we did. Jeff and myself, on more than one occasion, had to pull them apart fighting. You know, and it is a bit like Adidas with Adi Dassler and Rudy Dassler. They didn't get on either. But Rudy Dassler did leave the company and set up Puma. It didn't happen with the Foster family. There was no leaving the company. They just continued to fight until my uncle died. But he died about 2 years after we had left the company and set up Reebok. And it was a difficult moment telling my father that we were leaving, even though he knew we were very disturbed at the fact that the family company was failing. But it was a difficult moment. But and it probably took about 3 or 4 years, really, to heal that wound of us leaving the family. But I guess it was our destiny. We had to do something with the family, with the business going down. And I guess really it was we needed a future. And so we had to leave.
Thank you for sharing that. Now, Joe, knowing what you know now, what advice would you give to anyone who's involved in a family business? What would you do?
You know, families can work, but I think it starts off when you're very young, being introduced and being part of a working family. You know, something that really does work. The one thing that I found, I came out of doing national service when I was 20 years old. At 21, I was married. I had a wife. And the reason for that was that in those days, whoever you were, the boys went away from that social scene and did 2 years away from. You had friends, you had people, you were the girls, the boys, all the friends were together, going to local dances, doing things locally. But these boys were going away for 2 years at different times, and they come back, and that social group's no longer there. But you do meet one or two, and so I came back to the girl that I'd known before going into the national service, and 12 months later we got married. So I'm now a family man, and I didn't know at that time, because it took another couple of years before we had to become entrepreneurs, before we moved away from the family business, and that to me, the realization was, it took some time. I now had a new family. Reebok became a family, and that in itself is a difficult situation. You have one family, and you have children, and then you've got your other family, your business, which, to be successful as an entrepreneur, you have to be in love with it. It has to have your passion. It has to have that determination, that the will to succeed and continue, even during the bad times. And that's very important, that if you've got a family and then you bring in this other family, you have to try to make space. But when the demand comes in a business, you have to look at it and look after it. And that can be a big problem.
Well, thank you for sharing that, Joe. Now, w- is there a time where you and your brother Jeff in a disagreement of whether it's direction or the vision of a company? How did you guys deal with it?
You know, I don't think we thought about it, but when I look back, and I've done this for quite some time now. I mean, unfortunately, as you will read in the book, my brother died at a very, very difficult time. A brilliant time for the business, but it needed him at that point. And he was only young. He was only 47. And, we never had an argument. Jeff loved the factory. He loved making shoes. He just, and the agreement was, look, Joe, I'll make the shoes. You do everything else, which meant the sales, the marketing, or even to an extent, a lot of the designing, meeting people, that was up to me. And Jeff loved the fact. And as I say, we never argued. And I do reflect that father and uncle, I mean, they just were at war. And many people in family businesses are. But, I probably did a lot of things pretty badly. But Jeff didn't worry about it. He probably thought, well, he'll get it right in the end. So, and I think that was largely up to Jeff, that he was just so happy doing the factory, providing I kept bringing orders in and we kept moving. He was very happy to accept that situation.
Wow. And Joe, take me back to the very first year of Reebok. Did you guys get funding, or how does that look like? Bring me back to the first year.
Well, we're talking about 1958, and when I look around today, and funding now seems to be so easy. Back in 1958, no. Funding, in fact, I was very fortunate to be able to get the bank to loan me £500. And a family member, we had a family member who also loaned £500. Eventually, when we did get together with my father, he also loaned us. I think that was £1,000 as we grew in those very early stages. But back there, day one, no, we set up the whole factory for about £250, which is, well, mind you, in those days, that was probably something like $750. So it's still a small amount of money, but it was sufficient. We managed to make sure. One of the best things that we did, and probably this was one of the biggest assets, is that before we actually set up our business, we went to college. In the evenings, we went to footwear college. And not only did we learn a lot more about materials, how you make shoes, what we did do is we made a lot of friends. We made acquaintance, people in the business. And when we did leave the business, if we wanted some material or wanted some advice, we could go to the college, and they were there for us. So that was a tremendous advantage that we had. I thought it was a tremendous advantage to be able to turn to people. And and we were in the north of England. There is a region shoemaking region. The biggest shoemaking region in the United Kingdom is further south than where we are, Northampton, Leicester. But there is a shoemaking industry very near to us. And Bolton wasn't in it, but we moved nearer. When we moved to Bury, we moved nearer to it. And I found so many good friends amongst those manufacturers who would help us. And, that to me was a big asset. But money? No, we didn't have our fingers on being able to obtain money in those days.
Wow. Now, Joe, how did you ended up from €750 and using your friends and family's money? When was the time when you realized you got something in there? You have a gold mine. What moment was that?
Well, that didn't arrive until we arrived in America.
And what year was that?
It was 1979. By the time I arrived there, I'd been going down. It was 1968, my first trip to America, which was the British government. They had decided they wanted companies to export. And I just picked up this advertisement that if you wanted to We would provide you with a stand at the NSJ show in Chicago, which is the National Sporting Goods in Chicago. They were doing that. They'd pay our return airfare, and they'd also pay half of our hotel bills. So going to America and starting that journey was good. And they supported us all the way through to 1979. But what made the difference is I was pushing to knocking on the door. How do I get my shoes into the American market? And it wasn't easy. J.W. Foster's, they had managed to do that at Yale University. Yale University, the head coach, Frank Ryan and Bob Gienjack, they obviously knew of Foster's, and they were importing 200 pairs a month. So that was good. I thought I could do that as well. But finding that person, finding how to get into the market, really wasn't that easy. And it came about through Runner's World. And if you're a runner, back in those days, you picked up on Runner's World. That was the Bible. People read it. And Bob Anderson, who was a publisher, he was doing so well, he thought he could tell everybody which was the best shoe to wear. Well, you've 350 million Americans, probably 35 million were running then, and 3.5 probably will say, well, I want that shoe. So Phil Knight, Nike, yes, I think his shoe was the first number one, but he was importing. He was importing from Japan, and he could never meet the demand. So that was a problem for the business, for the shoe trade, for the shops. And Bob Anderson would change it after 1 year. He changed. This was the new number one. Didn't go down well, but somebody must have persuaded, or he recognized that he needed star ratings instead of saying this is number one, this is number two. And star ratings, 5-star shoe, that would be the top. Then 4 stars, 3 down. And I knew we could make a 5-star shoe. We knew our business, and we knew we could make that. And so that became the difference, because we did get a 5-star shoe. We did get our gatekeeper, Paul Fireman, who had said, Joe, I'd love to import your shoes, but we need a 5-star shoe. We got it. And that got us in, because that was the hook. You'll know that, being an American. You need that hook. And so instead of us pushing for all those 10 years, all those 10 years, we got onto the market. And we had a nice running business. And that started from Boston. And the only amazing thing about that with Paul was, he had a small camping wholesale business. It was the outdoor business. And I thought that would be nice to just, Reebok can bolt onto that business. But when we did get the 5 stars, and I did go across to see Paul, Boston camping no longer existed. So Paul put 100% into it. And, that's an awful lot. And that means an awful lot. No distractions. All the problems, just as we had when we started the company back in 1958, you had to answer them. You had to take them. And that was the big difference.
Wow. Joe, how did you run from that small amount of funding to now in America? What are some of the complexities that you have to deal with? You're scaling and you're in this different market.
We're in a different market, but I always recognized right from day one that once I got into America, we really needed an American to run that side of the business, the American market. And that was Paul Fireman. And Paul Fireman, he had a 5-star, in fact, he had 3 5 stars, because the 5-star rated in 1979, Aztec was a training shoe, a road shoe, the shoe that most people would buy. But we also had Inca, which was a spike track shoe, and we also had Midas. We called it the Gold Range, and they all got 5 stars. So Paul had the 5 stars, a lot of these shoes to start selling, and he was doing very well. But, that business was going nicely, but that wasn't the secret to Reebok's success in America. It was Arnold Martinez. And Arnold Martinez, he was a tech rep down in Los Angeles, of all places. He was a good athlete. I think he'd actually trialed for the Olympics, but beyond that, he was a good athlete and a tech rep. And his wife, Frankie, she was coming home from aerobic classes and with her friends who were really full of it, excited. And I was saying, what's going on, Frankie? What are you doing? And she said, we're going to aerobic classes. And he said, what are those? Well, we're exercising to music, and it's fantastic. It's absolutely fabulous. Arnold said, I must come and see it. He did. He went down, saw the instructors in sneakers, saw half of the class in sneakers, the other half barefoot. So he thought, why don't we make them a special shoe? But it wasn't just a special aerobic shoe. It was for women. The shoe was made for women, with a woman's fittings, the size was right, and that was the difference. It wasn't for men, and the women loved it. They loved it. We got James buying a pair of shoes for our videos, and they didn't just wear them for the aerobics. They wore them on the street. They went to work with them and put their heels on when they're at work, and it just exploded. And it went, at that point, we were about a $9 million business. In 12 months' time, we moved to 30 million. And then we moved up to 90 million. And then 300 million, then 900 million. In 4 or 5 years, we were a $1 billion company.
Wow. Now, Joe, did you have any mentor or advisor that was so impactful for you embracing that growth?
At that time, no. We did a lot of friends. And I think a lot of people joined it. We created a winning culture, and that winning culture was driving the brand on. And we didn't have to advertise to employ people. People saw when they want to join a winning culture, and inclusion. As far as I'm concerned, it is inclusion. You're not the boss. You may happen to have the shareholdings or whatever, and you brought the company into this world. But you've got to share that. And so sharing all that, you bring in people who, like you, want success, feel success. And the company grew from that. Because, when you grow up to be $1 billion company, there are a lot of jobs in there, a lot of people. You need a lot of people. And you need a lot of clever people. People who can do the job better than you can do it. You've heard if you're the brightest person in the room, you're in the wrong room, and that's absolutely so. As far as I was concerned, I needed bright people, and we were very lucky. We got bright people, and we got people who shared our excitement. So that's the challenge. The biggest challenge was that we didn't have to sell any product. It was keeping up with the demand. That was the problem. Because the demand was such. How do you pay for it? Well, Stephen Rubin came in. He was a sourcing company in the Far East, and that he gave the company a credit line. And once you've got a credit line, you can just keep going. And I think that was basically just keeping going was really our mantra at that time. And we needed then to consider production. Because you don't go from $300 million up to almost $1 billion. And this happened within 12, 18 months. You don't do that very easily. And fortunately for us, at that time, Nike had hit a wall. They had to pull out of at least 3 factories in Korea. And we just took them on. And so we would never have been able to find that sort of production had that not happened. So things happen in life, whether it's by fate or whatever, to help you. And these things helped us get to that first $1 billion.
Wow. It sounds like you really tap into your community, to friends, to help you get there. Now, Joe, was that always been your exit plan, to exit a company? And was that originally your plan?
Well, I know these days, and we were at London Business School last week and talking to the people who teach you how to be an entrepreneur and what to do. And they were saying, look, Joe, you broke all the rules. That doesn't happen. You're not doing this to the plan. You're not doing this to the right system. And no, we weren't. We just kept going. And I think that was the big secret to it. So, when we When it got to a certain point, though, I'd got Paul Fireman as the distributor working on America. And we had an arrangement. I said, Paul, please just look after America. I'll do the rest. So I was then traveling the world and putting on different distributors. And I put on another 30 distributors over the next few years, which increased our volumes tremendously. But when we got to something just short of 4 billion, I was traveling the world probably 3 times every year. I would do a global round trip. And eventually I'm sort of arriving at whatever city it would be, being picked up by a limousine, going to the best hotel, dining at the best restaurants, and talking to the company CEOs and whatever it is. And I thought, well, maybe it's time that I backed out. This is now a corporate business. It's no longer that nice little business that you could touch all corners. It was corporate business. We did some wonderful things because I was also hosting our Monte Carlo Pro Celebrity Tennis. And the Pro Celebrity Tennis, we had so many people in from Hollywood, from the film. Frank Sinatra even came across, and there's so many. And same from tennis. So it was a great time. But I'm just, the challenge had gone. It was so many people were. So I decided that time for me to step back. At the end of 1989, I stepped back from my role in the company. And, well, I thought I'd retired. But, the phone kept ringing. And yes, and I think for me, I usually sort of say this is like the Eagles in Hotel California. You can check out, but you can never leave.
Wow. Do you think everybody can be an entrepreneur?
Anybody can be an entrepreneur, but you have to have the right mindset. You have to be ambitious. You have to be, I'm going to say, optimistic, totally optimistic, and you have to have that ability to just keep going, because not every day is a good day. A lot of days you find problems, but if you do sort of, if your glass is half full all the time, it's great, and you have the desire. You've got to have that winning desire has got to be there, and yes, if you have maybe a little bit of stupidity, maybe a little bit of stubbornness, that we can do it. We can, and we can keep going. And also, it's the power of positive thinking. If you think positive, it's surprising. Eventually, these things happen.
Wow. Thank you for that, Joe. Joe, you mentioned about brand wars. How do you look at competition?
Well, during this period, we had grown. We had overtaken Nike, we'd overtaken Adidas, and we'd become the #1 global sports footwear company. We weren't looking at the opposition. We were just trying to grow our business and keep up with our own business. In fact, we were our own competitors. Could we deal with all the orders? Could we take on this work? So we didn't look around. And even when I left, we were #1. I think maybe the company had to change a little bit from 1990 to 2005 before it was sold to Adidas. And maybe we were not ready for that. Maybe the company wasn't ready. Maybe the company had grown on how do we manage the orders? How do we manage to satisfy the demand? And of course, as with everything, it does slow down eventually. And when it slows down, you've got to be in a position to say, where do we go next? And, Reebok did really well. But I think, unfortunately, I was very fortunate in finding Paul Fireman, because he did a cracking job, tremendous job in America. But I don't think Paul managed to find his successor. By 2005, Paul wasn't too well. He was feeling a bit sick, and he needed to hand it on. And I don't know why or how or what happened at that point, but he hadn't found the right person to drive the company. And so it was sold to Adidas, which didn't do Reebok any good. And now we're in a position where Adidas have agreed to sell to ABG. And I think there's a tremendous future for Reebok. We now have Shaq O'Neal, who's a big part of ABG, and he loves the brand. He's absolutely in love with it. So just like I was, or I say was, I think just like I still am. Yeah, somebody needs to be in love, have that energy, have that drive, and take it to the next level. So that could well happen. We're all waiting to see what the plan is.
Oh, well, as you guys were scaling, your issue is handling the demand and production. So what is it? What is it that works for Reebok? Is it the branding? Is it the culture of the company? Is it the influencer marketing? What works?
I think a lot of things worked for the company. All those came into line. It was like getting your ducks in a row, all the stars coming into line. They all lined up, mainly by chance. A lot of accident. We didn't plan a lot of these things. We weren't planning. We were there, so that when the opportunities came, I think we were very capable. We just took the opportunities with both hands, and we ran with it, and that was the just keeping going. Like I say, it took me 11 years from my first trip into the USA to finding Paul Fineman, and that becoming my entry into the USA. And, I can say that in a few seconds, but I had 6 failures. I had these people, we tried hard and we tried to get in, but it took the change in the running market, for the running market to grow big as we were trying to get in, for Runner's World. It took a few things that you look and say, well, maybe the only thing that we could say we planned was we knew how to make a 5-star shoe, but the fact that a 5-star shoe would be in demand, we didn't. That was circumstance. That was the market, but we knew how to make a 5-star shoe. Just as probably Arhill knew what he was doing when he said, "Let's make this shoe just for women," because that sort of took the men out of the equation. The women had a company. Adidas, Nike, they were male, sweaty. All of a sudden, this nice, small British company with a little flag on the side, this is ours. It's owned by women. And I guess that was just so hypnotic. It was just something that, wow, we weren't known for anything big. We were just this nice company with this nice white shoe. So, yeah, you've got to add all these things together. And yes, we made some good decisions, and the company grew. So, we didn't plan from day one that this is how we would make our future, and I don't think it's possible to. You can plan a route, but it's probably like climbing a mountain. You have to go whichever route you can climb. No, it's not just a straight line. You've got to. I can go this way. I can go, and I think we were so willing to move and change. And yes, we were in the same business at Adidas and Nike, but we didn't. We were not looking around. We were creating a business, and aerobics was something that was created, or it was born there in Los Angeles. But I think we took it global, which I think was, a big step.
Oh, thank you for that, Joe. I have one last question before I'm going to hand it out to our amazing moderators that's joining us today. Joe, how do you want to be remembered?
Well, I didn't want to be remembered. Probably maybe only 6 months ago, 9 months ago, you didn't know Joe Foster was the founder of Reebok. I can guarantee you didn't know that. I was just so happy. Reebok, that was it. We didn't want confusion. I didn't want different names like this. No, Reebok. Let's get Reebok. It was always pushing Reebok. But after I'd retired, and a few years after I retired, and people start to invent. Where did Reebok come from? People write about this, and I'm reading that this is what happened. This is how J.W. Foster's, a British company, just changed its name. And I'm thinking, no. And there was a photograph. This is Joseph William Foster, founder of Reebok. And I have no idea who it is. The photo. Who was that in the photograph? No idea. So that probably inspired me to write the book, Shoemaker. Just so people could understand the story, know where it came from. So I didn't step out there and want Joe Foster to be somebody that everybody remembered. It just so happens that the book seems to have struck a chord. It's a lot of people seem to think that there's a lot of messages in there, and I guess there are a lot of messages, but really there were experiences, things that we did, we experienced. I had some fabulous experiences and a real fun time with the company, but not every day is fun. And that's when you've just got to keep going, because there are some pretty grim moments.
Wow. Now, Joe, do you have any regrets for not building your personal brand, or do you care at all? If you could take back time, would you build, and would you probably more open that you're the founder of Reebok, or you're okay with it?
Oh, I'm okay with where we are. Regrets? No. I think, we became probably something bigger than our dreams. Jeff and I probably dreamed to be a top company, known globally. We didn't dream, I'm sure, at that time to become number one. So, we overtake Nike, we overtake Adidas. We are number one. So what's to regret? The only thing, if you call it a regret, it is so sad. And my brother died just when we'd got our 5-star shoe, and he didn't see that growth. He didn't get to feel the fun, the real sort of excitement. He didn't get that. So, there are things that I'm sad about. Regret, I can't do anything about it. And I think regrets can be a waste of time. So yes, I could have done things a million times different in different ways. But as I say, when you become number one, what's to regret?
Wow, thank you so much, Dan. Where can our audience buy the book? Joe, what's the site for
Yes.
LinkedIn and Instagram Live and Facebook? Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, so I'll share just so everybody has. And Joe, this is really incredible. Thank you. I know a lot of people have questions, and we'll open it up here in a second. So just want to say thank you before that. We're honored that you're here. Joe Foster, founder of Reebok, the company that everybody in the world has at one time has had a pair of shoes of Reebok, if not many shoes. So if you go to WMB.Club, it'll actually forward you to their site. It's jwfosterheritage.com, or just go to WMB.Club. Shoemaker is the book. Not only do you get the book, though, you also get the book signed by Joe with a personal message. And there's some additional stuff that they're also giving, which is incredible. I mean, why would you go on Amazon to buy it? Just buy it from their site. WMB.Club will forward you to the jwfosterheritage.com. Buy the book right now. This is incredible. You get it signed by Joe himself with a personalized message. That is just incredible. No one's really doing that. So don't go to Amazon. You can, but go to WMB.Club. It'll take you to jwfosterheritage.com. Buy the book Shoemaker by Joe Foster here, founder of Reebok. I know we're going to open up to Q&A. Before we do, is there anywhere else, Joe, that you'd want people to check you out on?
I think you said it all, Dan. Thank you very much. That's incredible. That is our website. And like you were saying, we push a couple of things. We actually put in there, it's a letterhead from J.W. Foster's from the 1920s. And it does say that we supplied all Olympic athletes at the Antwerp Olympic Games in 1920, plus lots of other stuff. So it's quite an amazing piece of paper.
Wow, what an honor. I think this is our very first iconic brand here. And Joe, we are so honored having you here. And if you have any friends that created iconic brand, bring them here. Would love to have them as well. So everyone open
Okay.
your mic and let's thank Joe. What a day.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yes.
All right, Dan. Yes.
So we are going